4, follow traffic, clear visual approach, runway 4 right, maintain 17, John Austin, 5 mile final. 17 until 5 out.
Building the next generation aviation workforce with renewed support from the FAA and on Capitol Hill. From the National Business Aviation Association, this is Flight Plan. I'm Rob Finfrock. Workforce challenges remain a top concern throughout the aviation industry. Efforts to attract and retain qualified personnel, including within business aviation, received a boost earlier this year with passage of a comprehensive FAA reauthorization bill. With more, I'm pleased to welcome Mary Ann DeMarco, Managing Director for the Coalition of Airline Pilots Associations.
So there were many items in the recent FAA reauthorization bill, including provisions to support the workforce development initiatives such as grants for aviation workforce and scholarships for individuals pursuing careers in aviation, and also enhancing workforce training program, which improves training programs for aviation workers, including pilots, air traffic controllers, and maintenance technicians.
What we're trying to do, especially with the workforce part of the law, is specifically recruit, retain, and engage our aviation talent. And if we do a good job with what is laid out here, it's going to affect positively the entire aviation ecosystem.
Joe D'Amato, CAM, is NBAA's Senior Vice President for Education, Training, and Workforce Development.
We're really excited about anyone whose interest is sparked in an aviation career path. That may happen at a young age, it may happen later in life, but if we can get them heads up in aviation and embracing that potential career journey, then we can help them fine-tune that. Mary Ann and our colleagues that work in other sectors of the industry, and then also at NBAA and our members and colleagues, will hopefully help mentor and shape them to find the career path and the part of the industry that excites them the most. The real key here is to capitalize on what exists to help recruit, retain, and engage them. That's the most important part. And then we're going to help them self-select into the area that's going to be best for their skills and talents.
Joe, Congress passed that reauthorization measure back in May, and it was signed into law soon after by President Biden. Those are encouraging signs that lawmakers have heard the industry's call for help in building a next-generation aviation workforce. And that's also a message you shared quite effectively on Capitol Hill recently.
Thanks for that, Rob. This past summer, I was able to testify before the House of Representatives Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure Aviation Subcommittee. And the hearing was titled, FAA Reauthorization, Eliminating Bottlenecks, Examining Opportunities to Recruit, Retain, and Engage Aviation Talent. And I was honored to represent NBAA and business aviation, but I was also representing the great work of people in our industry, specifically who were part of the Youth Access to American Jobs in Aviation Task Force, which ran from roughly 2021 to 2023. And then parallel to that, the Women in Aviation Advisory Board. I was a member of the task force. Mary Ann was a member of the Women in Aviation Advisory Board. And the work of those two groups was influential in what was created and exists in the law. And the things I focused on were the importance of early awareness and engagement, and where the law talked about some provisions that the FAA should help implement and others to take care of that. Access to information, collaboration among stakeholders, addressing the financial hurdle as a barrier to entry, and then also and especially for underrepresented groups, and including women, that culture barrier and what we need to do to change the culture.
Mary Ann, I know those are messages you frequently share as well, including through your service on the Women in Aviation Advisory Board.
We looked at culture, recruitment, retention, advancement, and data. And I think along with that, the important issues that really we need to work on are funding and awareness and getting the next generation, supporting the next generation of aviation professionals into the industry. And I think that's critical because the financial support goes alongside the awareness and supporting the students, the learners, as they're going through their multiple pathways, whether it's commercial, business, or whatever sector of the industry, to help bolster them to get to that end goal. If an individual comes through from a community college and they only have a certain amount of funding to support, we also need to incorporate the accreditation portion of some of these institutions or schools so that they can transfer their credits And when they get to that next step throughout their pathway, they're not having to start over again, which is a cost barrier.
It's fantastic to see how our entire industry has come together to address workforce concerns. But at the same time, Marianne, both business aviation and the airlines are then competing for those workers we're bringing in.
And there's so many great pathways to enter, even at the basic level of internship and creating that next step for that individual. But segueing off to that, I think the data piece is important as we look towards what our needs are for the very near term, short term, long term, and on the horizon for our aviation industry. And seeing a lot of the data sets, trying to pull those together, there's apples to oranges from different agencies, different entities. And if we can commingle all of that from the 30,000 foot view on the workforce development, that will help us identify what our needs are, how much is this going to cost for the industry, and bringing all of those together will help us do a very good analysis on how we bring those people in.
That's what I treasure about, my relationship with Marianne and our colleagues is that we are, first of all, I think anyone who knows us knows how passionate we are about this topic. It's about the excitement of someone getting sparked to have an aviation career. It's the excitement of celebrating their successes and getting to roll up our sleeves on projects that are going to directly impact youth coming into the industry or underrepresented groups, but then also how important it is to support them throughout their careers, to watch them grow into leadership positions. We also have colleagues who are so closely working with trade schools and other paths to professional education, and the funding that is important for a student, for anyone who targets this as a career path, who needs to find that funding to follow the dream, regardless if they go through a trade school, a training program, a 2 or 4 year institution. That financial hurdle is huge because it's a scary, large barrier that could be the difference between their having a career in this industry or not. You've got to get them over that hurdle. What's great about the Reauthorization Act of 2024 is it strengthened some existing grants, it established some new ones. There's more focus on training of pilots and aviation maintenance technical workers. Those of us who love talking about it, love to get people excited about it, sometimes lament that we can present this wonderful career path, but we fall short on the tools that someone needs to pursue it. And seeing that there are some answers to the financial hurdle, that we're working so hard on the culture piece, that there are more examples of see it, be it. Those are all things that are critical to this, regardless of what the final career path is, 121, 91, cargo, commercial, business, humanitarian. We just want to help get them launched in their careers and then support them so they stay.
That was a great statement, Joe. And also to add on to that is what we haven't focused on is middle management and those who are already in aviation and going through their pathway on their journey on their career, helping support if an individual wants to go back and do additional training, get a master's or PhD or whatever that looks like in their journey, that we need to have that funding mechanism for those middle managers to get the experience to get to their next pathway.
I'm so glad you brought that point up. I mean, that's the part where we're all so good at using the words attract and developed. Retention is so important. What we don't want is a revolving door. What we don't want is for someone to find themselves stuck, that they can only achieve a level so high, that they run out of the mentorship or sponsorship or allyship support that they need. Again, that there's a financial hurdle that prevents them from advanced growth. Could be a culture hurdle telling them that there is not another level for them. But the worst thing that can happen to us is that we bring people in and their longevity in the industry doesn't exist. We are not trying to build a revolving door. The numbers at the wide end of the funnel are starting to improve. We now need that stickiness. And that's the responsibility of all of us. I've said, and so many others said, I didn't coin this phrase, but we are, if you're in this industry, in aviation, you are in recruiting mode 100% of the time, even if that is not what your role is in your profession. We are all recruiters. And maybe the conversation that we need to embrace is, okay, we're recruiters. How are we also retainers and developers? What are we doing for those good people who want to grow and continue to lead in this industry if we're not investing in them also?
Indeed. But we've also seen some steps back recently in the hiring of aviation workers, particularly for pilots. Mary Ann, do you think that might portend a more expansive hiring freeze for the industry?
We're looking at multiple careers within the aviation industry, from pilots, mechanics, aircraft engineers, aircraft designers, manufacturing. There's so many incredible opportunities within aviation that we're looking at, all casting a wide net, looking at all career opportunities. But I also would like to say that when it comes to talent development, and Joe understands this, sharing best practices, resources, training programs, that both industries can work together to address these common challenges and ensure they have access to the talent they need to succeed.
In addition to having been one of those youth who learned how to fly when I was 16 and went all the way through a 4-year program and flight instructed for my university before entering business aviation, I wore those shoes. I'm married to a legacy airline captain, so I have watched his journey, including furloughs, in the last quarter of a century. I have a rising junior at a 4-year aviation industry institution who just got his commercial rating. And I have a high school senior who just received his first acceptance letter to a 4-year aviation technologies program because he has an interest in being an A&P. So my joke is the D'Amatos are trying to address the workforce issues of the future one child at a time. But sometimes my parent hat comes on because it's less my kids and more their peers who ask me what I think their prospects are for the future, or can I help them with some of the harder decisions they're making. And, what I'm able to tell them now in 2024 is I think we all pretty clearly understand what your career is going to look like in the near term. What is it going to look like right after graduation? What might it look like 5 to 10 years from now? Maybe not remarkably different from people who are in those roles now. But what we don't know, and I think what a number of us are fascinated by, is what does the future look like? What are these careers going to look like, outside of a decade and moving forward into the rich mid-career part of their lives? And so I encourage them to follow the energy they're interested in right now. If they're in a flight program or still have an interest in being a pilot, a technician, an engineer, anything within the aviation or aerospace realm, continue to follow that, because you're going to be the ones who are going to get to design what is next. If you have that training and education already, they're going to be looking to you to help create this new future and these new pathways.
Yeah, this really is such a multifaceted industry. Who knows what kind of career someone will discover once they've taken that first step?
Whatever it is that a student might have interest in right now, and I'm not joking, it could be that they have a deep interest in culinary. Okay, let's talk to them about food safety and how that translates to the aircraft environment, and how that they really do need to become not only a culinary expert, but a science expert, and how to make sure that is a service that can be offered in flight, and how important we could tie their interest in being a chef or a culinary professional to that. They may have a passion for interior design. Okay, well, let's intrigue them with what it looks like to outfit the interior of an aircraft, except the challenge now is also the weight and the materials and everything else, and how they do on a moving vehicle that will be airborne. So there's a way to tie to everybody's interest and intrigue them in aviation. There are a lot of exciting career paths out there, and we only have such a small amount of time when somebody sparks interest to help that interest grow before we lose them to something else, another interest. So a huge, important part of the reauthorization that both the Women in Aviation Advisory Board and the Youth Task Force promoted, and that I truly hope that Congress and the FAA, continue to work towards making a reality, is access to information, access to resources. How can a caregiver, a teacher, a guidance counselor, the young person themselves, how can they find out more information after that interest is sparked? How can they get access to the resources? How can they see it, be it, so that they know that their dream actually has merit, and they can see other people doing it? How can they understand how they can finance it? Are there mentors who can help them? This concept that both the Women in Aviation Advisory Board and the Youth Task Force coined, a one-stop shop. We need a one-stop shop national resource that every time you or Mary Ann or me or anyone else that we know is approached by someone who says, I'm interested, here's the QR code, here's the URL, here's where you go. And I'll tell you, this has happened to me twice in the last week. I was at an independent living home having dinner with a loved one, and the young person who was the waiter knew that I was in the aviation industry and took me aside and said, when I graduate high school next year, I'm interested in an aviation career path. Can you give me some information? It happened to me a week later at a cross-country meet. I was walking back to my car, and a kid caught up to me and said the same thing. Mrs. D'Amato, I was wondering, could you talk to me about an aviation career path? I'm a senior in high school, and I'm interested. I am not the only source for this. I love that they're able to find out that there is a source, and they're coming to me, and I will talk to anybody about this all the time. I know Marianne will too. But what I really want to know is that they're being shown that this information is available in a much more readily accessible way, that my answer is a more streamlined answer, that you don't have to know me to get that answer. Follow your path. If we can make inroads there, and I don't want to minimize how important this law is, and all of the good things are in there by saying this is the most important, but this is such a key piece and could really take us to the next level. Marianne, I know you and I are so passionate about this. I want to pass it over to you because you probably have a lot of thoughts also.
Great comments, Joe. And we're seeing a transformation in the industry, especially with utilizing new technologies too. And for the younger generation, being able to be mentors for them, and also mid-career being lateral mentors for our peers, and connect those dots within the industry, and being able to provide those resources, like Joe said, one-stop shop is critically important for parents that want to help their children get into aviation, and how making those hard financial decisions and the next steps for them. And for example, we have a number of folks, not only the safety, but also on the security side. There's individuals who are engineers that are creating algorithms for technologies, and they would like to go into designing an airport. How do we harness that energy and make sure that we've captured, like Joe said, helping them make that next step?
So to that point, Joe, what can someone working in aviation do to help foster that enthusiasm? And more importantly, to be ready to answer questions that someone who's interested in aviation may have?
As a member of a number of organizations who are passionate about promoting aviation careers, I've seen it done well in multiple places. And also, that's the reason why I believe we need a one-stop shop, because we're all going to send people to different places. So nbaa.org/students is a page that we created. We have an intriguing career video there that tries to showcase a number of those jobs, and also, what a dynamic industry this is. If you're someone doing a career day, there's a PowerPoint template you can use. You can grab this video on YouTube. There's a poster you can download. There's a trifold. It has a few important things that a student or a caregiver or teacher or counselor might want to know, such as what is the expected compensation and growth in this? If you put the investment in, what can you expect to get out of it? So I definitely recommend that page for our members if they are looking for something really easy to remember. I think so many people are on our NBA website all the time. Just remember /students, and that's a good place for you.
Those are great points, Joe, and doing the same. But also I look from a different perspective on outreach from my position, leadership, to other leaders outside of the aviation industry, and kind of and outreach to let them know, if they have individuals that are reaching out to them, that these are the multiple pathways that an individual can come into within aviation that they otherwise would not understood, or awareness, again, from not only from the student side, but also from the leadership side, from an organization. And that's been met with great embrace to support aviation, because they know how important our industry is. But also on the other side, the economic development from the state level, that they can support the growth and putting in programs in place within each state, and the connectivity, if you will, for all of these industries. That aviation is one of the leaders. We're almost 6% of our nation's GDP, so it's a critical component of our nation.
And it's also an industry that leads the way in other areas as well, including new transportation modes like advanced air mobility, and the push towards sustainability and net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
That's a great example of a change I think we've seen generationally, that young people really have a good idea of what their personal values are. They're looking to match that with their employers. And they need to see that their employers have values, that they talk about their values, that they live their values and showcase examples of it. Those types of things, again, are what create an environment that people want to belong to and want to contribute to and want to celebrate and then bring more people in.
Like I said, there's so many pathways within aviation, and it's an exciting time. Aviation operations management, aviation safety and compliance, aviation technology, sustainable aviation, and the mentorship, I think, really is important in identifying those individuals that really want to capture that energy that they want to get into aviation and helping them through that pathway and get to their landing spot.
As we mentioned, if you're an undergraduate or high school student interested in aviation, or an aviation ambassador or a regional group wanting to highlight industry careers, be sure to visit nbaa.org/students for a range of valuable resources. And for the latest developments surrounding industry workforce issues, check out nbaa.org/workforce. And that's the latest from the National Business Aviation Association. Be sure to subscribe to Flight Plan on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. You can also ask your virtual assistant or connected device for the latest episode of Flight Plan, or download it directly from nbaa.org. I'm Rob Finfrock. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for a new episode of Flight Plan.
Miles right base, sending out 3500.
All right, we got him inside. We're slowing it back to 170. Cover.